Nepal has made seriously impressive progress in growing its forest back in recent decades. In the 70s, less than a third of Nepal's land was covered by forests. By 2022, this number had increased to nearly half. Nepal might be richer in trees now, but it's still a poor country. With an average income per person being $1,200 a year, the United Nations classified Nepal in the list of LDCs, which stands for Least Developed Countries, since the 70s. So, as one of the world's poorest nations, how did Nepal achieve one of the most impressive environmental success stories of our times? Let's take a deeper look into the history and the winning strategies that helped Nepal to grow its forests back. Nestled among the majestic peaks of the Himalayas, Nepal is a small and landlocked country. India borders its southern, eastern and western edges, while China guards its northern frontier. Nepal is also a relatively resource-rich country. It has deposits of valuable minerals including limestone, marble, copper and cobalt, but it is very difficult to access these. Much of Nepal's landscape is mountainous, and the infrastructure to exploit these resources, such as roads, power plants or bridges, is limited. On the other hand, from towering pines cloaking the foothills to vibrant rhododendrons decorating the higher slopes, Nepal's diverse forests offer a breathtaking tapestry of nature. In the middle of the last century, life was even harder for poor rural communities in Nepal. For example, in 1960, the average annual income in the nation was $48 per person. And imagine, you're a farmer and maybe made $20 or $30 that year. You're struggling to feed your family and heat your home in a harsh Himalayan winter. You'd probably resort to the forest nearby and exploit whatever the trees can provide for you, as would I. When the needs are so dire and urgent, one does not always prioritize the future. If you're not sure you're gonna make it to the end of the winter, you don't necessarily think 20 or 30 years ahead. Alas, this is exactly why Nepal lost most of its forests between 1950 and 1980. But things started to slowly change when the government launched its community forest program in 1978. The basic idea here was to hand large masses of local forests back to their communities. So people owned and controlled these forests in their territories rather than a centralized management, but with government support. Local communities formed forest user groups and millions of local volunteers were recruited to protect and grow Nepal's forests. The government provided training, technical expertise and financial resources to support these forest user groups in managing their forests effectively. And in return, these communities developed plans for sustainable forest use, including harvesting practices and regeneration efforts. The community forestry program promoted sustainable harvesting techniques such as selective logging and planting new trees to ensure long-term forest health. Throughout the decades, all these efforts snowballed into today's resounding success. Forests now cover about 45% of this mountainous country when it was 29% in the 70s. But the benefits extend far beyond just the environment. The program has created sustainable livelihoods for communities through the sale of timber, non-timber forest products, and ecotourism. This economic empowerment has led to improved living standards, education, and healthcare for families across Nepal. The community forestry program has instilled a sense of ownership and responsibility within communities. People are now much more invested in protecting their forests, leading to a stronger connection to their environment and a brighter future for Nepal. Even though there is absolutely no doubt that the community-based approaches to forestry have been very successful in Nepal, there is another theory on what contributed to this achievement, and that is out-migration. Nepal has a long history of out-migration, with its citizens seeking employment and opportunities outside the country for decades. Millions of Nepalis, particularly young men, have chosen to seek opportunities abroad, leaving their families behind to chase a better life. Over 2 million Nepalis work in countries like Malaysia, the Gulf states, and South Korea. So, some scientists have been theorizing that this exodus and the money coming from abroad helped reduce illegal logging and dependence on forests. One study found a very surprising connection. The places with the most people leaving were also the places where the forests were growing back the fastest. If this sounds like some kind of a lucky coincidence that undermines all the other efforts and progress, I want to assure you that it probably was not. Migration actually plays a major role in shaping the future of our forests, but the results are mixed. In Nepal, with fewer people relying on farming, pressure on forests has decreased, allowing them to regenerate. But it's not all sunshine and roses. For example, in Nicaragua and Guatemala, a different story unfolds. Remittances, which is the foreign money sent back by migrants, has fueled the growth of cattle ranching, leading to deforestation as land is cleared for grazing. So it isn't as straightforward as people immigrate, their families back home get a bit more comfortable, and forests thrive. In Nepal, following decades of action, as of 2021, the Himalayan nation has fulfilled the economic development criteria to graduate out of being a least developed country. The reforestation efforts since the 70s and economic growth clearly went hand in hand and improved the lives of millions of Nepali people. While Nepal's forest restoration is a huge win, there is also a flip side to the coin with some limitations and ongoing challenges. One of them is the increasing confrontations between humans and wildlife. Living in forests alongside amazing creatures like rhinoceros, tigers and elephants comes with challenges like crop damage and livestock predation and sometimes even attack on humans. In addition, forestry growth has been concentrated in specific regions, particularly in the mid-hills, with less progress in the Terai and high Himalayas. While the total forest cover has increased, the diversity of species has not necessarily recovered to pre-deforestation levels. And of course, when it comes to communities taking control of the forest, there is the issue of local hierarchies. Women and marginalized groups may not be fully involved in the decision-making processes within these communities. Finally, unfortunately, deforestation remains an ongoing issue in Nepal, though the rate has significantly decreased compared to the past. Overall, the story of how Nepal grew its forest back isn't a neat or a straightforward one. Alongside the admirable grassroots efforts and policies, there are some surprising elements that contributed to it. Although most rural communities benefited from deforestation and enjoyed an economic boost, there were also some undesired consequences. That said, in a world plagued with environmental disasters, what happened in Nepal in the past several decades is extremely impressive. In the 70s, at the peak of Nepal's deforestation, there were worries within the scientific community that the damage that was already done was irreparable. This green revolution is truly a beacon of hope for the world. It shows us that even in under-resourced communities facing environmental challenges, community action and determination can make a real difference. Thanks for joining me on this fascinating journey through Nepal's amazing forests. Here on Sanity Feed, my brand new channel, I focus on making explainer videos about things that work in our messy world. As a seasoned journalist and filmmaker who's traveled the globe, I'm not the one to shy away from the major challenges humanity faces. However, within a media landscape often consumed by negativity and division, I have made it my mission to share stories of solutions and progress. These are the stories we often miss amidst the barrage of outrage-inducing headlines. If you find my content thought-provoking and uplifting, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Sanity Feed. I hope you join me on an optimistic virtual journey around our world where we will explore the positive solutions that offer hope for a better future.